Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's Vantage Live analysis session on Wednesday. Right, so as always for today, right, I'll just wait for about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to stream in, and after that, we will get the session started. At the same time, if you guys have any questions with regards to specific chart requests that you want us to take a look at, do put them under the questions tab. So we'll just wait for about 1 to 2 more minutes before getting the session started. Okay, so for those of you guys who just joined, right, a very warm welcome. So we will be starting the live analysis session soon, right? In the meantime, if you guys have any questions or any chart requests, do put them under the questions tab, and we will take a look at them together. Okay, so let's get the session started. So just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing, right? So I provide FX advisory to institutional clients. I'm also part of the team that's recognized by the Technical Analyst Awards as finalist for the best FX research. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn, right? So if you're watching a recording of this version, if you have any questions with regards to the analysis done on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, right? Do put you can either reach out to me on LinkedIn, or if you're with us live right now, right? Do put your questions under the questions tab. So just a quick disclaimer before we get the session started. The information provided over here, it's for informational and educational purposes only. It's not to be treated as investment advice. So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today. This is a 30-minute session. So we will be covering the key economic events for a start. So for this, we will hop onto the economic calendar just to run through any key economic releases that we are to watch out for. And then following that, we will be doing the trade setups and review. So this will be a review of last Friday's calls, mainly on dollar index, dollar franc, as well as gold. So we'll be taking a look at how that play out. And then after that, we'll also be introducing two other ideas, right? So on the chart, on the charts, we will be taking a look at dollar index as well as pound dollar. And then at the end of the session, right, if you guys have any questions, or even halfway through the session, if you guys have any questions or any specific chart requests, right, do put them under the questions tab and we will take a look at them together. So before I hop on to the trade review for the charts, right, let me just bring out the economic calendar. So for the economic calendar, you can go to vantagemarkets.com, just go under economic calendar here, and it should bring you to this page. Okay, so this is the economic calendar. This is useful in helping us to keep track of any key events that we have, right? So on the first column over here, you can see that this is basically the time. For me, I adjusted it to my local time, and then the currency as well that's impacted. So for me, I look at mainly the G7 currencies. So that would be your dollar, your euro, pound, Aussie, Kiwi, CAD, and yen. And then these are the key events. So in general, you can see that these are categorized according to the impact of the news. So the ones in red would be the ones with higher impact. The ones in amber would be the ones with lower impact. And then the ones in gray would be the ones with the lowest impact. So the key data that I keep a lookout for in this case, right? So this column usually would be the CPI data. So CPI data measures inflation, and this would be a good gauge of roughly what is the stance by the central banks. So if inflation continues to climb, what happens is that usually central banks are under pressure to raise rates to rein in inflation. So CPI data would be one to keep a watch out for. The other ones would be your retail sales data and also your manufacturing, PMI manufacturing data, PMI services data. and GDP data. So these are the ones that I keep a lookout for, right? So you can see that what we have coming up here would be mainly, oh, sorry, just aside from that, right? Other key events would be, of course, your central bank's interest rate decisions, right? FOMC meeting minutes, which we will have due this week as well. So for this, right, so the key ones that we have, you can see that the core PPI data, and then also later today, we will also have ECB President Lagarde's speech. So if there are any hawkish stance by the ECB, right, it could help to prop the euro slightly higher. But in the long term, right, because euro against the dollar generally it's more favorable right now. So euro dollar, pound dollar, they are generally in a downtrend. So other key news events you have would be your Eurozone CPI data, as well as core CPI and dollar CPI data. So this one will be closely watched by a lot of investors around, right? Because this measures inflation. It will also give you more insight into Fed's path of rate hike. So this is the general idea, right? And okay, so this is what we have. And now let's hop on to the charts, right? Just to see the trade reviews and setups. So right now, right, these are the three different ideas that we want to review that we actually covered last Friday, right? So on dollar index, dollar franc, and gold. So let's take a look at how that played out, right? So we put a marker here. So let me just bring out the charts. Okay, so this is on dollar index, right? So on dollar index, on the higher time frame, you can see that generally on the monthly time frame, prices are facing resistance, right? So this resistance area over here, you can see that prices are reaching this level. But if you look at it on the weekly time frame and on the daily time frame, you can see that we're still seeing bullish market structure. So what we mean by bullish market structure is essentially prices forming your higher lows and higher highs, and you can see that prices are still continuing on the upside, right? So this is on the dollar index. Our bias is still bullish. You can see that on this area itself. So we've highlighted this area, I believe, in the previous two sessions. So this is the support zone. You can see that there's Fibonacci levels lining up here. That's one. And also it's the previous resistance turn support area. There is also ascending trend line. Prices are still holding above this area. So for me, my bias is still bullish on dollar index, right? So until we see a reversal on the smaller time frames over here, right? Right now on dollar index, I think we could still see more upside. What I do want to caution in this area is that if you look at the interaction between demand and supply zones, right? So essentially over here, right? So this is the monthly resistance where we saw that big pullback. And coming into this zone itself, this is an area that I want to keep a watch out for. You can see that essentially, right, looking at the interaction of these candles, you can see that there is a very clear resistance area here. So essentially how price played out, it pushed above it. And this candle itself, it's basically the candle that still held within resistance before it failed completely. So this candle itself is the region I want to keep a lookout for. So you can see that you can highlight this zone and stretch it across, right? So this is the region, and you can see this area here. So when price enters into this region, right? So we can see that there's still some more upside before it reaches this area. So this for me, it's a H4 supply zone area. So this is one area I want to keep a lookout for. So this is the region over here. So for me right now, right, dollar index is, we could still see more upside, but where it is currently, right, there isn't any nice risk to reward trades over here. You can see that in terms of just support level itself, this would be the support region. You can see this area, right? So if I were to stretch this region across, you can see that essentially, again, looking at how price react, price came in, tested as a support. Let me just change the color of this marker. So price came in, tested as support, pushed down, and then you can see price came in. Again, it hesitated at this resistance area before it broke above it and retested as a support. So you can look at it in terms of candles, right? If you're not familiar with candles, you can also take a look at it in terms of line chart. If I switch it to line chart, you can see that there is this horizontal line that I can essentially draw very nicely across that divides the chart nicely. So what I mean by this is that if I just draw any horizontal line, for example, if I put a horizontal line across that is, let's say here, you can see that price just wicks across it. It doesn't really respect this region. But if I put a horizontal line across this area that we have here, and also this zone that we've highlighted earlier, right, you can see even in terms of line chart, it actually divides this chart very nicely. You can see this area, right? So price came in, tested as both a support and resistance. So this would link to the support resistance concepts that we covered. So in this area itself, you can see that this is basically the support region, right? So right now prices are still sitting on support region. We could still see more upside, but in terms of the risk reward ratio where prices are currently, right, there isn't any nice setup for me on dollar index. My overall bias is still bullish, right? Though we have to be slightly more careful when price reach into this resistance area that we have over here. So this is an area I will monitor, right? When price comes into this region, it's not that I'll take an immediate shot, but rather when price comes into this region, this is an area I would zoom down to, right? Either on the 30 minutes or 15 minutes time frame to try and identify a change in market structure here. So this is the support and resistance areas that we have, right? So currently, this is how dollar index looks like on the 4 hours time frame. I think we could still see some limited upside above this region. So this is on dollar index, right? So the next one that we want to look at in terms of the review would be on dollar franc. So recall on dollar franc here. So let me just bring out the chart first. Okay, so this is the chart that we have on dollar franc. This is the one that we did on Friday. So essentially on dollar franc, let's look at the higher time frame first. So you know that on the higher time frame, this region that we've highlighted, right? We've highlighted again demand supply zones. So on dollar franc, there is this area that we've highlighted as supply, also a resistance area. How so? If you take a look at how price react, you can see that there is a strong push down over here, right? So this is the resistance area. It's also the last area where we saw the strong move down. So this is also a supply region. So this is on the higher time frame. When we go down to the 4 hours time frame, or rather the daily time frame, same thing, right? We've highlighted these blue zones. So these blue zones are basically the daily resistance, right? Or the daily supply zones that we have over here. So let's go back to where we saw dollar franc on Friday. So on Friday, this is the region that we saw dollar franc, right? So essentially price came in, tapped into this blue zone, which is the resistance area or the supply zone. And this is currently where we are at. So let me just bring it back, right? So this is how it's like. So let me just do a quick replay of this chart. Okay, so back when we saw dollar franc on Friday, this is how it looks like. So I put a marker here as well, so we're able to kind of track this. So this is actually on the M30. We did our analysis on the M30. So this is this. Let me just remove the Ichimoku cloud so that we're able to see the chart clearly. So back when we saw the chart on Friday, right, this is the region that we're at. So let me just remove the marker now that we are replaying it, right? So essentially on this area alone, right, this it's what we have here, right? So you can see that there is demand and then demand failed, creating supply. So price came in and tapped into the supply region. We've also highlighted this area as a demand region, right? So this area is still, you can either think of it as demand, or if you're more familiar with support resistance concepts, right, you can think of that as well. So essentially it's a support area. How so? Because price came in, tested as a resistance, it broke above it, and you can see that there was this interaction. Price held it twice, and right now it's trading within this range. So our call on dollar franc is that prices are sitting on a higher time frames resistance. If we're expecting more downside, we want to wait for a clear break and close below this area. So this is why we put this area as the downside confirmation, as you can see over here, right? So this is the area that we've highlighted as the downside confirmation on Friday. We also use round numbers. So the bias is that if price comes over here, right, and it breaks below this region, close, oops, let me just remove this, right? So if it breaks below this region and closes below it, then this would be the new resistance area where we can play the shots. So this is the idea, right? Hence the downside confirmation. We've also highlighted many times that this is an important level to watch out for, right? Only on the break of this level will we see further shots. So you can see why this is important, because if I were to play the chart over here, you can see that essentially price never failed to break below this downside confirmation level. So if we saw here, you can see the reaction once as a demand and then on this region again. So let's take a look at how it's like, right? So you can see price just continue on the upside, right? So this level, it's never broken as a downside confirmation. So essentially no trades are triggered here. Okay, so this is on dollar franc. You can see that currently, let me just close this replay button, right? So currently where dollar franc is right now, it's still sitting on the resistance area that we have over here. Right, so this is an interesting region because right now what we have on the 30 minutes time frame, it's clear market structure being formed. So let me just remove all these drawings, right? And let's take a look at where we are right now here. So let me just remove this because this is on the smaller time frames and the levels no longer hold, right? So we did a review of this on dollar franc already. So I'm just going to remove all these levels because the levels change and the Fibonacci retracement levels will change according to where it is. So right now where we are on dollar franc, if you take a look at it on the daily time frame, we have prices coming into resistance area. It's still sitting on the resistance area over here. If you take a look at it on the 30 minutes time frame, right, recall that when we talk about market structure in our educational webinars, right? When prices are in a bullish market structure coming into resistance, which is this area that we have over here, you can see that it still continues your higher low and higher high. And this is the last region that we have. Essentially, this is the last area where we have a clear low being formed here. So you can see, right? So price pushed up, and then you can see this region. I will consider this the whole leg, right? And push down here. So right now, this is the last low that we have on the 30 minutes time frame. So what this shows us is that if price breaks below this region, if we see a pullback and a clear break below this region, it suggests that there's a possible change in market structure for price to continue on the downside. And the continuation on the downside would be in line with prices sitting on this daily resistance. Okay, so right now, this is the region that I'm keeping a lookout for on dollar franc for a clear break below. Right, so this area over here, you can see that in terms of, again, demand and supply area, this candle over here, that we saw the push up. Price came in on this region once, and it reacted to this demand, right, before we see this kind of the sideways movement that we're looking at over here. So what I'm waiting for over here, right, if price breaks below this region, I'm just waiting for a clear break below this last low that we have over here as support. And this would be our new downside confirmation. So again, I want to emphasize the importance of waiting for the break below this level to show that there is a possible change in market structure. Okay, so this is the daily resistance area, and right now on the 30 minutes time frame, we're still on the 30-minute support. So let me just label this as the M30. We're still on the 30-minute support, so we want to wait for a clear break and close below this region before we see a clear market structure being formed. Okay, I have a question, right? Can you cover on equity market structure for the forecast until the end of this month? Thank you. So let's take a look at, I believe equity market structure, is there a specific index you're looking at? If not, I'll just take a look at SPX later. Okay, so if there's a specific index you want me to take a look at, do put them under the chat, right? If not, we'll take a look at SPX together in a while. Okay, so this is on dollar franc. So let me again just put a marker here so that we're able to review it, right? So let's see how the setup plays out. So right now, there isn't any trade setup. We're just waiting for a clear break and close below this downside confirmation level. On the break of this, right, then it suggests that there's possible bearish structure to be formed. And with this, right, then we will be taking a look at it probably next week. So let's take a look at how this plays out first. If there is a break below, then we can take more trades here. So this is on dollar franc. And there is one more on gold. Let's take a look at gold, right? So gold was also covered last week. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is what we have on gold, right? So the downside confirmation actually played out on gold here. So you can see on this region, same thing, right? On the higher time frame first, on the monthly time frame, just identifying supply and demand zones. You can see that on this area, gold came in and it actually tapped into this monthly area, this monthly resistance here. And if you go to the weekly time frame, you see the same region as well. We've also highlighted this as let me just go to the daily so that you can see it clearer, right? So you can see that in terms of the daily, this is the last leg before we saw that push up. And along with that, we have also highlighted on the daily, right, the daily resistance here. So this was covered in the previous session, right? Essentially, there is demand and then demand failed, creating supply, and this is the supply region. And in line with that, right, we did a Fibonacci retracement as well. So if you want to use Fibonacci retracement to find resistance, you need to identify the high point and the low point. So we did a Fibonacci retracement using the high as our starting point and the low as our ending point. So this is the idea, right? So when price comes into this region, you can see that it's sitting on a resistance area. So this is what we saw back on Friday. And if you go down to the smaller time frame, so we did the analysis on the 1 hour time frame for gold on Friday, right? So again, this is the marker that we left off. So this is essentially where we saw the chart at on Friday. So this is how it looks like on Friday, right? So this was our call. Essentially, price came in, tested the resistance area that we have over here. We also identified this as a demand region. So again, let me remove the marker. We identified this as a demand area. How so? Because you see how price reacted over here. Price tested as a resistance before it failed completely, and right now it's holding as a support. And you can see how price interacted in terms of specific candles as well. You can see price come into this region, tested as both a support, pushed higher over here. So again, this is our downside confirmation level, right? So we put this on Friday. Essentially, what we're waiting for is a clear break and close below this region and a retest before price continue on the downside. This would be our partial profit target over here, right? So this is the region. So you can see, like, let's see how price play out. So let me just remove all this replay, right? So this is basically the region where we saw on Friday. here, right? So you can see that the downside confirmation happened over here on the 1 hour time frame, right? So essentially price broke and closed below the downside confirmation level. We tested this region again as a resistance, right? And it came into this area here. So this is the partial profit. And then following which price came in, we tested this region again as a resistance. So for me on gold, it's still more bearish, right? If you take a look at it on the 4 hours, you can see that it's still sitting on resistance area over here. And right now, this is where prices are. So let me just do a fresh analysis, right? So I'll just remove all these levels that we have highlighted here. So the downside confirmation happened. So we saw that break and close below, right? Even if you're on a 4 hours time frame, you see the same thing, a clear break and close below, and then a retest of it as a resistance with this small doji candle that we have, and then price pushed down much lower here. And then again, right, same support and resistance concepts apply. This was the previous resistance. Price broke and closed above this area. And then price came in and retested this region again as a resistance. For me, the overall bias on gold is still more bearish because of where it is sitting on the monthly time frame. You can see that it is still sitting in the supply region. And then again on the daily, it's reacting off this region as well. And if you take a look at it in terms of market structure, you can see that there is a strong push down and a pullback over here, right? So if price continues this bearish market structure, we could see gold push lower. So this is on the daily time frame. So let's take a look at what we have on the 1 hour time frame. So something I do want to highlight on this area itself is that if you take a look at where we are currently, you can see this region, right? So again, the same thing, there is this area. So just zoom into this area. You can see this candle over here where essentially price came in, right? It reacted to this supply region over here. There is this resistance. So again, if you take a look at it, probably in line chart, you can see it clearer. Essentially, we have this resistance area over here, right? So what we have over here is that price came in, reacted to this resistance, and then it pushed much higher. You can see it very clearly in terms of the candlesticks. So over here, this candle itself. So this candle for me would be the demand region, right, that we want to keep a watch out for. So over here, right? So again, right, in terms of how I get this candle, is because of how price reacted to this area. This was the last supply. Price came in, reacted to it, and then it failed completely. And this candle itself was the candle that still held within this resistance. So this for me, it's the demand region. So I'll highlight this candle over here. Okay, and let's take a look at where prices are currently. So this is the region. So you can see that price did not actually came back to test this region over here, not this time, right? And right now, prices are still not testing this region. So it's just holding on this support area that we have over here right now. So when price enters this region, right, currently where gold is currently, there isn't any clear setup for me, right? But when price enters into this region, we could potentially see a pullback from here. So that's one. So this is a region that I'm waiting for price to enter. Where it is currently for me, it's still bearish, but there isn't any nice setup. Where it is currently, you can see that it's still holding below this descending trend line over here, right? So this is on gold. And if you go down to the 30 minutes time frame, you can see that this region itself, it's just an area where price came in to test as a resistance twice here. And then it wicked above, and right now it's still testing this area as a resistance. So for me, right now, I'm just waiting for price to enter into this region on gold. So there isn't any nice setup here as well, right? But this is the region that I'm waiting for price to enter, and then possibly we could take a long from here. So let's see how it plays out when price enters this region. So this is on gold, right? And yeah, so those are all the trade reviews that we have, right? So these are the two other setups. So we covered pretty much on dollar index, right? The outlook on dollar index with the trade review, right? And the other setup I want to show you guys would be on pound dollar. So let's take a look at pound dollar. So this is the setup I want to show you. Okay, let me just remove all this. So this was our previous call on pound dollar. I think we did a review of this already. So I'll just leave it as it is, right? So let me just remove all the setups. So on the higher time frame, same thing, right? So this is our projection. So colored candles represent our projection. We do have the trade ideas report out every Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So I'll just show you guys where to find that in a while. So in this region itself, right, on pound dollar, you can see that prices are testing on this demand region, right? So we saw the interaction between demand and then price failed, creating supply. Price came into this region, tested supply. And then right now we're seeing the same interaction over here. So potentially another demand zone that we have, right? So there is again supply. Price came in, interacted with supply, and it creates a demand area here. So this is the region to watch out for. If you go to the 30 minutes time frame, you can see that there is clear bearish market structure here. How so, right? So in a bearish trend, we are expecting prices to form your lower lows and lower highs. So in this region itself, you can see that there is clear lower lows and lower highs being formed. Sorry, back drawing on my end for this, right? You can see this region. Right, so essentially this is the last leg where we saw that push down and the pullback here. So on pound dollar itself, right, this is the area that I'm waiting for. If you go to the, I believe the 30 minutes time frame, 1 minute time frame, right, this is basically the last leg that we have. Sorry, 30 minutes or 1 hour time frame, not 1 minute. Okay, so this is the last leg that we have over here and the pullback. So on this region itself, you can see that this is the area that we have here. So it's the same thing, right? So essentially, this is the candle that I'm waiting for, or rather, this is the supply region that I'm waiting for price to enter. So this region that we have over here. How so? You can see that if you go to the 15 minutes time frame, you probably see this clearer, right? So there is demand area here. So price essentially reacting to demand, and then it failed, creating the supply region. If you take a look at it in line chart, you can see this region as well, right? So this area that we have over here, essentially price came in. You see the support term resistance area. Price came in, tested as support, pushed higher, and then it failed completely. So this is the region that I'm keeping a lookout for, right? For price to enter this region over here. This is on pound dollar. When price enters this region, right, I think we could possibly take a shot here. Where it is currently right now, you can see that it's still sitting on support. How so? Right, there is this area over here. Again, support term resistance areas you can see, right, on the 13 minutes time frame, right, this region, right. If I stretch this region across, you can see this clearly. There is a very clear support term resistance level here. So how we see this again, right? Look at how price interact with the region. Price came in, and then we saw the push down before it continued on the upside. So for me, as long as price holds above this region, we could see limited upside over here, right? But if you take a look at it, so this is the structure or the direction on the 30 minutes is more bearish. How so? Because of how price reacted over here. You can see that it broke the previous market's low. So as long as price holds within this leg itself, right, we can still see more downside, which is why on this region itself, I'm waiting for price to enter this region to take a shot. Okay, so this is the area. We could see some upside on pound dollar in terms of where it is, right? So if you take a look at this region, let's just see how price react when it enters this region. So right now, where it is currently, right, there isn't any setups right over here. So we need to wait for price to enter this region before we can see how it goes. But for me, this is the resistance area. So on the 30 minutes time frame, right, this is the region that I'm waiting for the short here. Okay, so again, right, I won't be taking an immediate shot when price enters this region. I will go down to the 15 minutes time frame and see if there are any clear support levels that failed. So ideally coming into this region, you want to see price holding above support, forming your higher lows and higher highs, and then a clear change in market structure with the break of the low before it continued to the downside. So this is what I'm waiting for when price enters this region, right? Coupled with the fact that we have this area over here, the next thing that we can also do is see if there are any Fibonacci retracement that lines up here. So again, right, if you take a look at how price moves, right, you have your lower lows and lower highs, and then this is the last move itself. If we want to use Fibonacci retracement to find resistance, we want to identify the high as our starting point and our low as our ending point. So that's what we're going to do right now, right? So using our high and low. So Fibonacci retracement of the move starting from the high and ending at the low. Right, same thing, open up the key levels. So in the previous session, I shared that usually the 61.8 and 78.6 are the ones that I look at, right? Of course, these are the other default retracement levels. So the idea is that the way, given the market, right, you can always find a retracement level anywhere. So what's important is that we highlight this key support resistance levels first, right, before we actually take a look at the Fibonacci retracement. So having highlighted this resistance area, you can see that this region itself actually lines up with the 78.6 retracement that we see over here. So this is the region, right? So if price comes into this region that we have over here, I'm waiting for a clear break and then a clear break below this area, right? So we can target this area depending on how price react over here. If not, then this would be the low that I will target. And then this gray zone that we've highlighted, which is the H1 demand area that we have over here, will be the next target. So this would be the smaller time frames target, but of course you want to consider taking partials along the way. So this is my view on pound dollar, right? Now let's take a look at the questions that you guys have. So let's take a look at SPX. Okay, so let's see what SPX is like. So this is on the equity market. Right, same thing on the higher time frame first. So let's take a look at it on the weekly time frame. So you can see on the weekly time frame over here, right, there is very clear bearish market structure coming into play. How so? Right, just take a look at the lows and highs form. So we focus on this move over here because this is anywhere from November last year to where we are currently. So it's about roughly less than 1 year period. So in this region itself, you can see that prices are still forming your lower lows and lower highs, right? There's still bearish market structure. So on the weekly time frame, the weekly bias is still more bearish, right? We could see following the break of a structure, a pullback on this area itself, but you can see that until this high itself goes on the weekly, it's still bearish. Okay, so this is on the weekly time frame. One thing we do want to highlight as well, right? Apart from the weekly time frame, is again support and resistance levels. So in this region itself, you can see that where is the consolidation before we saw that break? There's this region over here. You can see how price reacted, right? So essentially price came in, tested twice, and then it broke much higher above. So if you're not familiar with candlestick patterns, take a look at it in line chart. You can see this region as well. This is the area where price essentially moved sideways or hesitated for a while before it broke above this region. So for me, this is the area that we have, right? So you can highlight it in terms of the specific candle. Essentially, this would be the candle that we have over here as the demand region. So I think that we could still see slightly more downside before price enters this region, right? Once we're in this region itself, this is on the weekly, right? This is a demand area, but understand that coming into this region, we still have bearish market structure in play. So even though price comes into this region, right, we could see a potential pullback, but again, until the weekly high, until this high goes, the bias is still bearish on the weekly. Okay, so this is on the weekly time frame. Let's go on to the daily time frame and see what we have over here. So on the daily time frame, right, there isn't anything much. You do see clear support resistance levels playing out over here. You can see that this region itself, right, this was the previous support area. So if you look at it in terms of structure, again, right, market structure over here, you can see price. Maybe let me just switch it to line chart and you can see it clearer over here. There is this high, right, and essentially price came in and you have this support area over here, which price tested, and then following which it failed completely and it became a resistance. So you see this region, there is this consolidation over here, there is this support area. So let me just draw this area. There is this support area. You can see price came in, tested this region as a support twice, and then it failed completely here and retested as a resistance. So if you take a look at it in line chart, if you want to take a look at it in candlestick, you can see that this is the area. So what we have over here is that prices are still holding below resistance, right? Notice this area. This is where price reacted twice as support and then failed and retested as a resistance. Apart from that, you can also do a Fibonacci retracement. If we want to do Fibonacci retracement to find resistance, we start from the high and at the low. So the lowest point right now is here, right? So this is the Fibonacci retracement that I'll do. So you can see on this region itself, right? If you take a low and high, the highest point is here, and then you stretch it across to the lowest point. And open up the key retracement levels over here. So this region itself, right? In this area, because I want to measure the move of this resistance. So you can see that this is the move. Price came down and then the retracement. So your low itself should be here instead, right? So in this region alone, right, if I were to just turn on the magnet mode to capture the highs and lows nicely, you can see that this is the highs and this is the lows. Okay, so again, right, apart from just highlighting support resistance areas, after you've highlighted the support resistance areas, you can see that price came in. There is also a Fibonacci retracement level that line up here, which is a 23.6 retracement. So for me, the bias is that on SPX, on the daily, on the weekly, is still more bearish. We could see more downside before price enters this region itself, right? On this region alone, this is the weekly support area, right? So when price enters this region, then we'll take a look at it or we'll review it again. But for me, right now, we're still seeing more downside here. So one thing to keep in mind is that, okay, so I have another question, right? If this zigzag pattern in equity market, is there any sign that bearish market would be exhausted soon? Right now, where prices are currently, it isn't really sitting on any key levels. So for me, right, I think that we'll have a clearer insight when price reaches this region. So this area itself, this is the weekly zone, right? So this is this area over here. This is at around the 3529.05. So when price reaches this area, then I think we could see more insights on this, right? So essentially what we're waiting for when price reaches this region is always the same thing, right? When price enters into this region, go down to the smaller time frame. It can be on a 1 hour, the 30 minutes, right? And try and see if there's any change in market structure. If you take a look at where we are right now, right? So maybe I just go down to the smaller time frame and we can see here. You can see that even on the smaller time frame, on a 1 hour itself, there is still bearish market structure coming in, right? Clear lower lows and lower highs being formed. This is the last low that we have, and you can see that this is the last high. So until we see a clear break above above this region itself, the clear break above the last high. Right now, where prices are, even on a 1 hour time frame, we're still in a bearish market structure. There isn't any clear support where prices are currently over here, so I'm just waiting for price to enter this region and then again see the change in market structure when price enters into this region. So this is currently where we are right now, right? So I would say that if you're on the 1 hour time frame or even a 4 hours time frame, just looking at structure alone, market structure, this is the last high that needs to be broken before we see a clear change in trend. So this high stands at around, you can take a look at it in line chart, right? So let's see this high over here. This is at around the 3790 area. So until that high is broken, for me, it's still bearish. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. So this is one region that we can keep a lookout for. If there's any exhaustion in terms of the downside, right, we want to wait for price to enter this region. And if there is a change in market structure from there on the smaller time frame, then it suggests that there's a possibility of this short-term pullback that we have, right, within this leg. So this is the bearish leg, right? So it suggests that we could see some pullback. But until price reaches this region, we wouldn't know because we need the smaller time frame to tell us or to confirm the change in structure. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Okay, I think those are all the questions that we have for today, right? We have also covered the review of the setups, right? So we will be reviewing them again on Friday, right? So for tomorrow, we will have our educational session. So you can also find the topics on vantagemarkets.com/webinars. So if you guys have any other questions as well, right, do reach out to support@vantagemarkets.com. So with that, right, we've come to the end of the session. Thanks everyone for joining, right? And we'll catch you guys again tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.